On this episode of Games and Grub, we dive into the underwater survival experience of Subnautica, and the battle of surf and turf ignites in the realm of food.
Welcome to the Games and Grub podcast, everybody. We're your co-hosts, Bennett.
Hello.
And Jess. And buckle up, because it's coming at you fast. Alright. Today we're going to be looking at Subnautica, which is a game I've been very excited to take a look at, because it's an awesome game, and there's many things to describe about it. But let's first go over some, let's give some background to it. I think it was originally released in, what was it? It fully released in 2018, but it was an early access game for a long, long time.
Yeah, I saw something that said 2014, but it could have been even earlier than that. It was in development for quite a while.
It was, and I remember the days of early access. That was cool. But yeah, it fully released in 2018, and boy, did they add a lot throughout that entire development period.
Yeah, it's kind of different than some of the games we've looked at so far, because it's a very open world game. And the way we would describe it is an open world survival and exploration game. Those are really the main draws of the gameplay, especially on the exploration part.
Absolutely, yeah. And this is, for anybody who's curious in playing this game, this is on all modern systems as far as we're aware. This is on Steam, Xbox, PlayStation, right, I think?
Yeah,
it's
PS4,
on a lot of different
PS5, stuff and I think Xbox One, and whatever the new Xbox is called, I honestly don't even know. I think it's Series X.
It's on a lot of different systems.
And it's on the Switch as well. I would recommend playing it on one of the newer consoles, just because it is kind of a pretty game, so you're going to want to see the graphics in the best way that you can.
Yeah, visuals are very important for this game.
Which is weird, because it was made with Unity, which isn't usually known for its good graphics, but they did a good job with it in this game. Absolutely, yeah.
All right. Well, let's get right into it. I'm ready for this, man. Let's talk about some gameplay. This is exciting.
Yeah. All right. Like I said before, the gameplay is really what this game is about, especially the exploration. And the story's kind of built more around the gameplay in this game, which is different, because most games you have a story that you play, but in this it's almost like
they work really well together. This is one game where the story and the gameplay I feel like mesh together so well, because I feel like in a lot of other games in this genre, like open world survival or whatever, if they do have a story, the story and gameplay feel very separate. It almost feels like you're just getting through the gameplay, and the story you kind of have to, it doesn't feel like the story fits well with the gameplay. Whereas in, Subnautica, it feels like the gameplay progresses the story at the same time in a very smooth effort. So, you're not playing the game and doing the story separately. It's happening, very smoothly at the same time, and it makes it very immersive because of that.
Yeah, and it's just a little bit, it's not so in your face, which is kind of nice for once, and you can take the story at your own pace. But first we're going to talk about the gameplay a little bit, because that is really what you come to this game for. Because you can spend a lot of time in this game just enjoying looking around. And if you haven't played this game before, just a little background is you kind of crash land on this planet that's completely an ocean. There are a couple little islands, but it's just ocean.
It's a almost completely water-based game, which is one of the defining features of it. It's there are some portions of land, but that's another thing that makes it so cool, is very few games are completely water-based. There's so little land that it's basically just a water-based game. There are other games that focus on survival in the ocean, and I don't know, what is it, Stranded Deep that's kind of like that?
I think so.
Stranded Deep or something like that. Yeah, it takes water's a huge portion of it. You're on the ocean, but there's different islands and stuff. But with Subnautica, the main draw is under all the waves. It's an underwater experience, and that is one of the most unique aspects of this game, is you are rarely exploring on land, but rather underwater. And to start describing that more in depth, this is perhaps one of the, I guess, focal points is what you say for how the environment and gameplay, like, yeah, just how the environment helps this game so much is the biomes and the creatures and, like, everything, every living thing and, like, place that you visit is so different and unique and, like, I guess descriptive and how, like, I don't know. How do you say descriptive and how they look? I'm missing the words. Like,
distinct, maybe? Distinctive?
yeah, distinct,
I don't know.
thank you. I don't know, something like that. Everything looks unique, and, like, it's not, there's no boring design to anything. Any of the biomes, like, the creatures, or the, like, plants or whatever. There are so many different areas in the game, and not one feels similar to the other. Like, there are some you could argue, yeah, there are, like, areas that feel similar or look similar, but there are just enough defining characteristics for each that you know that each one feels different and gives off a different vibe. And we should probably talk about some of them, because there's a lot to unpack. There's so many different biomes, like, I don't know. We should probably start with the safe shallows, right? I mean, I feel like that's it.
Yeah,
that's
thing
where
I
you
like
start
about
in
this
the
game is just how well it was designed in the environment. Where you start off, where your little life pod crashes after your main spaceship crashes from space.
Mm-hmm.
You crash into this place called the Safe Shallows, which is literally, the name describes it. It is very shallow. There's a lot of just kind of friendly creatures, I guess. Fish that aren't going to attack you. There's a couple, but they're not super dangerous. And it's really good, because if you crashed anywhere else on this planet, you would most certainly die. But you're convenient enough to crash in this area where you can kind of get started with your survival and have a fighting chance, which is cool. So the first thing you kind of want to do is just look around and find some supplies. And there's quite a few. There are one of the most well-known creatures in this game is called the peeper.
Yeah,
it's a
peeper.
fish with just gigantic eyeballs, and that's gonna be like your main food source here. And they're just everywhere. And then you've also got a bladderfish, which is like filled with water, fresh water that you can drink if you take them to your little crafting station. And so it's a really good area for new players, because they're still learning how the whole thing works, and nothing is too threatening.
Yeah, it's a good place to show, like, the basics of the game, because, like you said, it like, I mean, it's basically the shallow end of the pool, so to speak, and it literally is, just because it's called the Safe Shallows. Like you said, there's not a lot of threats to it. You've got, like, plenty of food sources or whatever, and it introduces you to the core mechanics of the game, because another core part of this game is you basically progress by going deeper and deeper into the world that you've been, like, placed in. Like, your goal is to basically dive deeper and deeper, and to do that, you need to discover new blueprints that are found throughout different areas of the world. And in the Safe Shallows, that's where it's first introduced to you, because there are, like, plenty of resources to gather, and once you gather enough, you can make a tool called, like, the scanner tool. And you can find, like, wrecks that are a result from, like, the crash of your, like, big spaceship that you were once on, and you can find, like, missing blueprints that you can scan, and then you can use those blueprints to make, like, new technology that help you progress deeper and deeper in the water. And I think, like, the in-game reason for describing why you don't already have those blueprints is because, like, I think during the crash, like, your databank got damaged or something like that, or, like, the hard drive got damaged or something. And I don't know, it's cool. It's a cool way to progress through the game, because, like, it encourages you to explore environments that are, like, worth exploring. Like, none of them are boring, and, like, the Safe Shallows just is a really good way to introduce that first place. And then from the Safe Shallows, you can basically go in any direction, and there's a different biome in each direction. That's not to say that there are...
That's one of my favorite things about the design of this world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, like, there's different biomes in every direction. There are some biomes that are reused, but it's not because, like... It's definitely not because the game ran out of biomes, you can tell that, but, like, it's that way the game doesn't just throw you, like, horrifying things all at once, because there are many dangerous biomes in this game. But, like, you have the Safe Shallows, and then surrounded by that, I think, are, like, the grassy plateaus and kelp forests, right?
Yeah.
I think that's another good place to go to. Because those are, like, the next step down. They're not necessarily the most threatening area, but, like, it's the next step down, because there's a lot of... There's more predators, which I'm forgetting what some of them are, but there's, like, more predators, and it's deeper in the water, and I don't know. They're more places to explore and offer like deeper waters and scarier environments. Not too scary yet though. It like gradually increases in horror, and that's like the next step down, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, but one of the coolest things for me when I first played this game was that there's a I actually have to look up the quote, but there's a area you can go to straight from the safe shallows, and it's just dangerous. It looks very barren, but it's very dangerous. I think you know what quote I'm talking about. I just can't type.
Isn't it the one where it's like multiple Leviathan class life forms detected? Are you sure whatever you're doing is worth it or whatever?
Yes, it says your little computer is I guess it's your PDA or whatever, but your little computer is trying to help you stay alive on this planet. And you go into this big open area. I'm pretty sure for me it was probably the dunes, because there's a little strip
I think it's the
safe shallows. And that leads right into the dunes. And I just see this wide open area with just sand, which is very different from the safe shallows because there's all this coral and there's structure and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I just see this wide open thing, and I just get this feeling in my gut that's like, this is weird. And then your little computer says, detecting multiple Leviathan class life forms in the region. Are you certain whatever you're doing is worth it? And that's where you just put it in reverse and get back to the safe shallows, because it's like, I don't know what that means, but I don't want to encounter whatever that is.
Well, and that is like one of the best parts of this game is like you're talking about the dunes, right? And how like you first discovered that from the safe shallows. That is perhaps one of the like best parts about this game is when you're faced with open water. That is when you feel like that really deep, like horrible feeling in your stomach. I don't know what it is, how to describe it, but it's like you're staring into a void. And it's just horrifying because usually you don't know what's in front of you. Like, I think we did a playthrough of this game recently, and last time I played it, I remember the dunes. I thought the dunes were like I thought the water was clear. And so I like went there this time like with full confidence. I think I was talking to you about it. I was like, aren't the dunes clear? And you're like, no, I don't think that's true. I went there, and it is like, even during like, when it's light outside or whatever, or on the surface or whatever, when you go down there, it is like, nearly pitch black.
Very,
it is
murky water.
It is very murky water, and even though it's deep water, you guys are probably thinking like, why? People would probably think, why is this scary? You know, it's just deep water. Well,
deep water is terrifying for one thing. So
deep water is terrifying for one thing because
disagree, but
yeah, but like not only is it deep water and like dark and whatever, and it makes like it's not just the fact that it's deep water and you can't see what's below you. It's because it's deep water and there is something below you that makes it so horrifying, because usually, especially in the dunes and other biomes in the games, there are creatures called leviathans, and there are multiple different types, but leviathans are the main, like, enemy, or whatever you want to call it, in the game, that lurk in some of the biomes, and the dunes is one of those biomes. And so, when you're faced with that, like, wide open water, like, landscape, and then you hear, like, a distant roar that is, like, you know it's out there, but it sounds far away. It's like, okay. Like you said, I'm going to put it in reverse.
Yeah.
It's horrifying.
Yeah, you find yourself hugging the floor a lot in this game because it feels like if you can eliminate some directions where you might get eaten from, you have a little bit more safety. But, yeah, like you were saying with the dunes and the murky water, there's something that I think a lot of horror games, or even in real life, just this concept, but something that always creeps me out is when you can't really see what's around you, and then later you get a look at it, and something bad was there the whole time. Like, imagine going up, this is very creepy sounding, but imagine you run up the stairs from the basement, and you turn the lights off, and then you look down, and you see a person standing there, and it's like, they were there the whole time, and you didn't know it. I mean, that's never happened to me, but that idea just really creeps me out.
I hope that has never happened to you in real life.
Thankfully, no, I haven't actually experienced that. But in this game, there's something very much like that, because, like you said, it's all murky and dark. And then there's a point where you get your sea moth, which is your little submarine thing, you can get this upgrade for it, which I think they just call the sonar. I don't remember for sure, but it lets you send out this sonar. Yeah, it lets you send out this pulse of like red. It appears to you as like this red wireframe, and you can see way further, and you start to realize like how close you were to these leviathans the entire time, and you just never knew it. It gives you such a bad feeling.
The thing about the sonar is, I think you may have just said this. I apologize if you did, but it reveals, like, it can reveal leviathans that you can't see with the naked eye, right? Like, there aren't leviathans that hide from your vision without using certain tools, but like, especially in an area like the dunes, the leviathans can be just out of your like sight range, and they sound far away. And then when you use the sonar, you realize, oh crap, they're a lot closer than I actually thought they were.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that is one of the most horrifying things about the game, is like, you gotta keep your head on a swivel. There is like, in those dangerous biomes, those creatures lurk in like every single spot, and it is so hard to see when and where they are, which is what makes it so scary, because they sound distant, but often you'll turn around, and like you said with the the stair example, it's literally right where you just were, and it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's like, that could have been me.
That literally could have been me, yeah.
But we haven't even... Sorry, go ahead.
We haven't even talked about what these things look like, I guess. Like, we haven't even talked about the leviathans themselves. Like, these scary creatures, there's not many different types in the game, but when you come across them, they definitely provide a memorable experience, because, like, I think there's only 3 leviathans in the game that are actually, like, harmful, right? I think. Because I can only think of the Reaper Leviathan, the Ghost Leviathan, and the Sea Dragon Leviathan. Which, yes. I will be honest, it's still scary. But, no, never mind. I was going to say the Sea Dragon is perhaps the least intimidating, but I'd have to give that more thought.
I'd say the Sea Dragon is probably the most dangerous, but to me, it's not the scariest.
It's not the scariest. All 3 of them are horrifying, but, like, I think the Reaper is perhaps... Yeah, the Reaper Leviathan is perhaps the most common Leviathan in the game when you go to, like, all the different biomes or whatever. Mm-hmm. Or, most of the dangerous biomes. Most of the dangerous biomes have the Reaper Leviathan, and I think that might be why it's so horrifying, is because, like, it's the most common Leviathan, and it's harder to see. Because I think, the Ghost Leviathan is bioluminescent, which I still think the Ghost Leviathan is scarier than the Reaper, but I can understand why the Reaper can give more scary experiences, because there's more of them to do that, and they are less identifiable.
Well, the thing about the Reapers that really creeps me out... Actually, there's 2 things. One of them is just how, when you're in your submarine, it has these kind of pincer leg type things around its mouth, and it'll just grab you with those and pull you out of your submarine. That's creepy. But the other thing is, they roar very loudly, and I think, I don't know if I'm getting this right, but I think they use their roar to like locate you. Is that right?
Well, I don't know if this... I'm not sure if this is actually how it works in the game. If it is, it's horrifying that it works this way. But according to the databank of the Reaper Leviathan, I'm pretty sure it says something like... It mentions, like, echolocation capabilities of the Leviathan. And then, like, at the very end, it says, like, if you hear this Leviathan, it can see you. Which is, like...
I think that is how it actually works.
It's horrifying. Like, after reading that data point, you're like... That's literally how they work. Like, it makes you really scared, because it's like... I have been being chased by something that can see me when I can't. It's chilling, but yeah.
It is terrifying. And I just lost my train of thought. I was gonna say, I think you just made the point, but yeah, you think about it, and the roar is scary, but when you know that the roar means something, like it has found you, it's just a completely different level. But the good thing is, this game offers you some nice tools that'll help you against these creatures. Like, I think a really, really cool part about this game, aside from just exploring, is the vehicles that you get to build along the way, and there's kind of, like, more and more upgraded ones. The sea moth is just, like... It feels like a safety blanket for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah.
If you're outside of it, you feel exposed, but once you're back in it, you're like, all right, I got a chance. I feel safe. Yeah. What's your favorite vehicle, would you say?
I know what my least favorite is, and it's just because it doesn't... I don't know why it doesn't feel as cool, but the prawn suit, I have to say, is probably my least favorite. Because, I don't know, like, it's not an uncool vehicle, but it's just like, I have to walk on the ocean floor, you know? It's like...
Yeah, the prawn suit, it's useful for getting materials, but it's...
Oh, yeah.
It's very, limiting in your mobility.
It is. But I do like the Cyclops, but I feel like the Seamoth is still perhaps the coolest vehicle in the game, just because of how, like, small and nimble it is. Like, it makes you feel secure, and it provides that mobility, and it just... at the same time, it's not big and, like, feels too big to maneuver. I don't know. It's the perfect size and perfect shape and everything. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
but,
I mean, they're all pretty cool. The Cyclops it's really nice how you get, like, this mobile base without even having to build it, which is...
Yeah, exactly. And
really,
you can move it around, which is very nice, too.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
I feel like there's so much to talk about in the gameplay. It's like, feels like we just don't have enough time, but...
Dude, I could go on and on about the gameplay, but...
It's so good. It's maybe we'll
good.
Revisit someday and go over
I hope
more,
we do.
But yeah, this is a fantastic game. So for now, we're going to move into our halftime grub report a little bit earlier in the episode. I guess it's not halftime, but it is the grub report.
Hey, it's halftime, all right.
Yeah, and we'll get into a little bit more about the story after this. So this is a debate that my co-host and I have very, very often.
It's a debate for certain.
Yeah. We have very different tastes, actually, in a lot of things, but this one we're both very passionate about. This is the battle of the surf and turf, otherwise known as fish versus beef. And the first thing we want to discuss is just kind of your, maybe you'd call it budget versions or most common versions of these two categories, at least that we like to eat. Which are the salmon fillet and the sirloin steak. You know, they're just kind of a basic, readily available version of each of these categories.
Mm-hmm. And, yeah, commonly eaten by us. But I will stand by this and die on this hill. So I will have a salmon fillet over a sirloin steak any day of the week. And it's because I literally feel like steak is a very chewy piece of meat. And there have been people who argue like, oh, no, try this good, like, cut of meat. It's better. It's, like, you know, more tender. There we go. That's the word I'm looking for. It's more tender. It's not that hard to chew. I swear, even in that case, it feels like it's just gum. It's like you chew it over and over until you finally can get it down. And it's like, I'd rather have a salmon fillet, which doesn't take that much chewing. It's way tastier. It's just, the salmon fillet is the ideal version of a steak. And I will die on that hill. I know you disagree, but that is just, it's better.
I personally think that adds to I think that's a pro for the steak. I don't want it to just mush in my mouth. I don't want it to just fall apart. I want to have something to chew on. When I put my dentures in, when I'm nice and old, maybe I'll enjoy salmon fillet a little bit more. But while I've got these chompers, I'm going to use them for something delicious. And that something delicious is steak. There's so much more flavor.
Dude, but I don't want to be chewing on gum for my meal.
It's not gum. It's not gum.
I feel like it is, though, because, like, okay, a salmon fillet is not mushy. It is, like, it gives, no, I don't know. I think it gives easier is the right term. But, like, it's basically not as substantial as a steak, but a salmon fillet is, like, the perfect amount of sturdiness, because it's not, like, it's not gum-like like steak, but it's not a pile of mush. It's just perfect, it's delicate, it's... When cooked properly, it's just a wonderful piece of meat to enjoy.
But here's the thing. You have told me so many times that you don't like too much flavor. There have been multiple dishes where you've told me
I will, yes, I don't, I'm not a guy for flavor.
Personally, I feel like flavor is a good thing, and I want it in my meals. And steak absolutely provides that, especially if you got some good marbling in your particular cut of steak. And... well, you use, you know, some nice herbs, maybe you use some thyme, maybe some garlic, some butter in there while you're searing it up.
You're getting too fancy, man.
No,
salt and pepper.
You gotta have some flavor. Even when I eat salmon, I want flavor. I mean lemon butter.
Okay.
But beef just offers so much more that, delightful umami flavor.
Delightful. No, not the umami, not the umami. I've heard that tomato offers that umami flavor, and if tomatoes are what
that's the biggest scam. We can agree on that. Tomato is no umami. Tomato. This is a topic for another time, but like anything that is used to make, like that tomatoes are used to make, like tomato sauce or something, I'm fine with that. That's enjoyable. Tomatoes themselves suck. However, let me get back to the actual topic. Let me add some context to how I enjoy my salmon. I will admit, I'm not a guy that has a ton of flavor. Like he just said, he likes to use a lot of spices and different things on top of his steak to add more flavor, which is fine. I'm not saying there's an issue with that. I'm a simple guy. I'm a salt and pepper type of guy, even on my salmon, nothing else. That I know that's probably not how you enjoy salmon. That's how I enjoy my salmon. Now, when I do that for both steak and salmon, you can bet your bottom dollar that I'm going to pick a salmon fillet over a sirloin steak, because it's just, like I said, it's gum-like. And even the flavor. Even the flavor most of the time. I don't know. There's something about steak. I want to say flavor, but it's overall worse. That's how I feel. A salmon fillet is the way. No, and I still don't believe that you've had a truly tender piece of steak because you just don't order steak. But here's the other thing. When I eat salmon, even when I make it at home, when I choose to make salmon, which is pretty rare because it's not my favorite food, but when I make it, I have to scrape some nasty gray stuff off the bottom, otherwise it just tastes way overly fatty. Or the pink part, it's fine, it's acceptable. But when you get to that layer that's between the skin and the main meat, it's truly disgusting. The texture is so slimy, it's even mushier than the actual meat, and it tastes terrible.
This is probably going to make me sound like a degenerate, but it may even hurt my argument, but man, I'm going to stick up for it. That gray part, when mixed with the pink part, dude, I feel like it complements each other in some way sometimes, and it can make the dish even more enjoyable. I'm not saying you just want to eat that gray part alone. When you get like a whole slice of that thing, like down to that gray part, pink and gray mixed together, that is a good piece of salmon, I feel like. Like, it just makes for a good piece of salmon. I don't know. I probably sound like a degenerate there, but I will stand up for my...
Here's the other thing. I feel like sirloin steak is more versatile as well. Because you can make a few things with salmon, but I mean, come on. You can make steak tacos. You can make stir fry with the steak. You can make a sandwich out of the steak. Salmon, you just kind of eat it how it is. And you can do that with a steak, but you can use it in so many different things. Sure, you can make a salmon taco, but most people don't put salmon in a taco. It's going to be like, I don't know, tilapia, cod, I don't know, whitefish of some kind, and so I just don't feel like you can use it as much.
Steak may be more versatile in its applications, but still, it's just because of what it is, it pales in comparison to the wonder that is salmon fillet, man. I will never give up my opinion on that. That's just, I'm standing on Salmon Hill, baby.
Well, I'm on Steak Hill, and you can't move me. But now, let's move on to the more broad topic of fish versus beef, because you told me that you might have a little bit of a different opinion on this one.
Oh, and boy, do I have a different opinion, my friend. Now, this is probably going to be the take of somebody who sounds dumb, probably, but it probably sounds dumb, but you know what? I honestly feel like ground beef is more enjoyable than steak. And the reason why is I personally prefer burgers over steak. I guess burritos or tacos over steak. I don't know if I actually... I guess I kind of eat burritos depending upon how you classify them. But yeah, there's burgers, ground beef tacos, and I feel like ground beef as a whole can just be used a lot more than like steak and fish for that matter. Which is why I feel like I side with beef on this side, is because it has more enjoyable foods and more versatility compared to fish in general. So I think we are more in agreement on this one, just because it's in a better form and it's more versatile. But I want to hear your thoughts on it as well.
Oh, I agree. I would like to point out that you can make ground beef by grinding up some steaks, so maybe another point for steak, but no, I think... And here's the thing. If you open it up to all fish, then I'm a little bit more open to the fish side, too, because I do like fish and chips. I think, like...
Oh, that's a good point.
I don't know if that's a category, but, like, cod or... whatever Red Lobster calls whitefish. I don't know if that's its own thing or just a category, but I don't think those are bad. I think like fried fish is pretty good.
If you have a good fish and chips, I feel like that could be better than chicken, to be honest. If it's good.
I don't know. I'm still on team tenders on that one, but I also think I'm gonna say beef is still a little bit better to me, but I can see how someone also likes fish if you open it up to more than salmon. I just don't like the taste of salmon as much. But you're right, burgers are amazing.
They are. And I mean, to be fair, outside of salmon, I can't really say that I've had a lot of different fish dishes. Like, I don't think I've had a genuine, like, I mean, would you just call it a tuna fillet? Is that what it was?
Tuna steak.
Tuna steak, yeah, okay. I haven't had like a genuine
tuna fillet, honestly, I don't know.
But yeah, like I haven't had like a genuine tuna thing like that. I've heard from people that it's better than salmon, so maybe I need to try it sometime to change my mind. But like in general, I think fish is probably inferior to beef based on what I've tried and what I like. But yeah, I feel like in general beef is better, but I will stick by salmon fillet being better than a sirloin steak.
Okay. Well, what would you say is your favorite restaurant to get any kind of fish? Salmon or anything else?
This one is... yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've actually had it from here, but like, last time I was there in Disney Springs, there was a place called City Works, and boy, did they make a good salmon fillet. That is perhaps my favorite place to have a salmon fillet. I'd have to try it again to like confirm, but I'm pretty confident in that being my favorite place. I will tell you, I have had one from Olive Garden, and that was not my favorite, but City Works is definitely my favorite for sure.
Okay, what about you? For me, for the fish, I would probably have to say McCormick and Schmick, which is a fancy steakhouse, but I tried on Christmas Eve once. We got some seared ahi, which was very good. That was just kind of an appetizer, but it was still delicious. But if I was gonna go for like a little bit of a more simple one, another restaurant in Disney World, which is like this little Irish place at Disney Springs. I forget the name, but they have really good fish and chips there.
Oh, that place. Yeah, that's also a good place to get it, too. Oh, we were talking about fish in general. Okay, that's another tough conversation. I would say either the place you just mentioned or City Works. One of the two. If you're looking for fish and chips, the place you just mentioned is very, very good. But if you're looking for salmon fillet, City Works is definitely another good place from what I remember. But yeah.
Okay. How about beef?
And we're just talking about any beef dish in general, right?
Okay, I'll make you pick a steak one.
That's gonna be hard, dude. There's not many.
Okay, fine. You could just pick any kind of beef.
No. I'll try to do a steak one, but first, I'm gonna do. Oh yeah, wait, no. Okay, for like ground beef, I think the lazy dog, I think is what it's called. Yeah, the lazy dog, I think is what it is. Yeah. And that, oh boy, that is a good place to get a burger. Let me tell you, because it's really good quality, it feels fresh, and it doesn't feel like a fast food burger. Like, it feels homemade, which I don't know if that's the right word, but it feels homemade, and it just feels really fresh, and man, is it like one of the best burgers ever, because I think they make it from scratch, if I'm not mistaken.
They do, and I have to agree, that's the best burger I think I've ever had. You have to be careful, though. Do not go to the Lazy Dog Bar and Grill, which I think might just be a local thing. Yeah. It's bad. You have to go to just Lazy Dog is the name of it. And I think they are all over the place. So, There's not tons of them, but yeah, they're kind of spread out. That's a good burger. For a steak, I'm gonna say McCormick and Schmick once again. Delicious, delicious. I wouldn't get a sirloin, probably a fillet, but yeah, cuts like butter, and it is so flavorful.
I don't even think I could come up with a restaurant for steak because it's been that long since I've ordered a steak.
Texas Roadhouse or something.
I'll say Texas Roadhouse. I have never tried their steak, but like, Texas Roadhouse.
It's okay, but it's not like,
I don't know.
You could probably make a steak at home that's as good, but
yeah.
Anyway, it's time for our grub ratings. I am going to go ahead and give fish. Are we going to go fish or salmon fillet?
We should probably... why don't we just do each? We just do, like, specific and general for each.
Okay,
so 4 grubs in a row.
Salmon fillet, I'm going to give 2 out of 5 grubs.
2 out of 5?
2
Holy
out of 5
crap,
grubs.
dude.
Sirloin steak, I'm going to give a 4.2 out of 5 grubs.
I thought you were about to do that thing so... Dang. I thought you were about to do me dirty and just put it at 4.5. I'm glad it's not 4.5. But
fish, I'm gonna put I'm just gonna put it at a nice 3 out of 5. It's good, not great. And beef in general, I gotta just put it at a 4 out of 5.
All right, I've got this lined up pretty dang well here. Okay, salmon fillet. We're gonna do this quick. Salmon fillet is a 4. Sirloin steak, I'm gonna say it's a 2. It's down there. Fish, I'm gonna say is a 3.5. It has some potential. I wouldn't say it's like the best thing, but it's got some potential. And then beef, I would have to agree, is a 4 because there's a lot of potential there.
All right, I agree, except
yeah,
for one of those things, or maybe 2. Anyway, those are our grub ratings, and this has been your halftime grub report. We are headed right back into Subnautica, and let's get right into that story.
Oh yeah. So we mentioned how the gameplay is the main draw behind this game, which the gameplay is perhaps like the major portion of this, but the story is not to be slept on either, because I feel like this is another game that actually does the story well, and it does it especially well for an open world survival game because one, I feel like it does it well just because we mentioned how the gameplay and the story kind of work well together and kind of flow side by side pretty dang well. And I feel like that's what makes the story so much better, is like you're not trying to work on them separately. It doesn't feel like that. It feels like you were doing both at the same time. And on top of that, the story is not in your face. It's not like blatant, and it's subtle, and it's also deep because of that. I don't know. I gotta organize my thoughts because it's like I'm passionate about this, but I can't think of how to put it.
No, you're right. And I think that a lot of open world games suffer from not having a very good story because it's hard to let the player go anywhere and still tell them like a linear story because they're not going exactly where you expect or whatever. But we should also probably warn there are going to be spoilers in what we talk about here, because this is a game that when you play it for the first time, there's a lot of like,
if you're gonna play this game, just
stuff, I guess. So,
there is, just do not play if you're gonna play, or if you plan on playing this game, I would not listen to this. Like if you want to do the story, I would not listen to this part just yet. I would play the game first and experience it for the first time, because this is a game where playing it the first time with as little known as possible is a lot better for you.
Yeah, I think everybody's first time through is probably the best, even though it's fun to keep playing after. But it's really cool because you play the story, like you really play the story more than in a lot of games. They show you the story instead of just having you watch some cutscenes or read some stuff. I mean, there's a little reading, but what basically happens is as you explore, you find other crashed life pods, and you get like PDA data and like audio recordings about what happened to the other survivors of your ship, or maybe not survivors if they were found by certain creatures or whatever. But it's really cool because as you go, you just discover more and more about what's going on this planet, why you even crashed on this planet in the first place, and why it's so hard to get off the planet. Which, I should say, you also don't come across any other people in this game. Except there's one scene where you get contacted by this other space vessel that they radio you and tell you they can come pick you up. They received your SOS.
It's called the Sunbeam, right?
Yes, the Sunbeam. And it gives you a time when you're supposed to go meet them on this island. But when you get there, they get shot down by this alien tower. And so there's like defense systems on this planet that shoot down outside ships. And so that's the only contact you actually have with people. You never see them. You just hear them over the radio, and then they get blasted, and that's it. You don't meet anybody else. So it's a very like isolated feeling, which kind of adds to the horror aspect of this game. Not that it's a horror game, but yeah.
And there's another thing to that scene that I think I just realized now, if I'm correct. But yeah, when you're watching that scene, I don't think there is any music. It is purely just like, I guess in-game noises is the way to put it. It's like, it's not playing up the matter, but at the same time, it feels epic because like, when they're first coming down to like, try and rescue you or whatever, like, as the time ticks down like on your screen or whatever, you're like waiting for them to arrive. You can hear like the alien facility that like shoots down ships or whatever power up next to you. And it slowly starts moving into the position where it's going to shoot down the sunbeam. And it's like, nothing is said to like hint at what's about to happen because like it's just slowly making noises and slowly moving into position. And then finally the sunbeam comes like down out of the atmosphere and you can see it pulling up. And finally the gun is ready and pointed at the sunbeam and it just gets obliterated. And once the sunbeam is gone, there's no music to play it up. There's no like dramatic effects or whatever. It's just basically the elements that, like, are needed to show what happened, and then it's just dead silent. And like you said, it adds to that isolation because it's like, you just witnessed a crew that came to, like, rescue you get blasted, and then it's just dead silence. Like, it adds so much to the atmosphere because it's like, holy crap, I am isolated now. Like,
yeah, and you feel
they just got blasted.
Stuck. It's like, if I'm gonna get out of here, I gotta do it myself. But
it's just, yeah.
The other thing from there, the other big problem on this planet is that the planet's in quarantine. That's why it's shooting down all these ships, because there is this disease spreading throughout the ocean creatures, and they do not want it to get off this planet, the aliens that kind of built these defenses and stuff.
Yeah.
And
like, or yeah, go ahead, sorry, that was my...
No, you can go ahead.
No, go ahead. I had a thought, and then I completely, like, I did not know how to put that together.
I was just going to say, to power down the defenses, to even enable you to get off this planet, you have to cure yourself of the disease, because it will not let you turn the defenses off if it senses that you are infected. So first, you have to cure yourself, and then you have to power down the defenses, and then you have to build an actual rocket to get off the ship, and you got to do this all by yourself, which is feels like a big task, but it's very satisfying as you work through kind of the different steps of that.
Yeah, and during all this, as you learn all these elements, you are literally going through like each and every biome in the game, and that is why the gameplay works so well. It's like, it's open world, but not a single area feels unused or like pointless. It just, there is always some sort of contribution from each area to the story or just the atmosphere in general, and that's why it does so well as an open world survival game, is because like, I feel like in so many, actually we'll get into that later, that's a huge another point, but yeah, I feel like it does such a good job with the story and like going through the biomes and exploration. It's so great. And like, another thing about this, the story, I feel like, is so subtle and creepy at the same time that I feel like it almost accomplishes a better version of horror than most horror games do today, because we were talking about this off the podcast, but like I feel like a lot of horror games these days are just kind of not even meant to scare you, but just it's kind of gruesome. Like a lot of the games are kind of disgusting, is how I'd put it, if that makes sense.
They rely too much on gore and like shock value and stuff,
and just some very sometimes like twisted topics, I guess is what I'll refer to. But like, so I know like there's death hinted at in this game in Subnautica, but what makes it like better than a lot of horror games, even though it's not a horror game, is that like there are some gruesome topics like death, but they are hinted at and not like explicitly shown in like, you know, disgusting ways. It's like you can tell that your other crew members died, but you don't see like how they died and like, you know, remains or anything. It is literally just like, yeah, they died. It's hinted at that, but there's not much more to be shown, you know? Which I feel like is so cool. It's like, I don't need to like look at something completely disgusting, but I still have that creep factor because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm alone.
Yes. And it almost makes it even scarier that you don't see anybody, because it's like, where'd they go?
Yeah.
So
it's just,
yeah, the story just, it's combined with the gameplay, because the gameplay really is part of the story. Like the exploration advances the story, which I think is really cool. And I think a lot of games don't do that. They either put it in your face or there just isn't a story. They don't usually have the two working together that well.
Yeah, and this is a topic for another day. Like, I bet we'll review this at some point, but I will lightly touch on this. I am not a huge fan of Subnautica Below Zero as much as this one, just because I don't like that your character talks and that there's a lot of exposition for the story.
Yeah.
It reveals a lot of like elements that don't need to be shown. It like you said, it does the in your face thing a lot more. And I'm not nearly as intrigued by the story in that one than I am in Subnautica 1, because it feels forced, and like it feels like you're watching something rather than experiencing it. It's like, okay, I'm watching these characters interact, that's cool. Whereas in Subnautica it's like, wow, I am isolated. I don't know much. I gotta explore, this is spooky.
Yeah, and especially in a game like this, having your character be silent and someone that you never see, you're always in first person, it makes it feel like you're there. It's not like you're experiencing someone else doing these things. It's like, I'm the one that's actually swimming around, piloting these vehicles and stuff. And again, it adds to the creep factor. It also adds to like the satisfaction, because it's like, I did that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And some games it works to not have a silent protagonist, but it has to be a specific style of game. And I don't think it works too well in this type, where you kind of discover the story as you go. It just takes you out of it. So yeah, it's pretty cool that you're so immersed in this game.
It does such a good job at immersion. Yeah, I love it so much. But yeah, I think we can. I want to move on and kind of compare this to other things, because I wanted to do that, or compare this to other survival games, I should specify. But like, I want to compare it because I was gonna say earlier, this game does such a good job at environments and other stuff compared to most open world survival games, and it's because each area, like I've been saying, is so unique. But I do know that like a lot of open world survival games have randomly generated areas, which can be cool. It's good for a lot of like, you know, new environments, or like not having the same experience every time. But it also hurts the game just because I feel like the environments don't always feel that well put together, and they often feel bland and empty. And because Subnautica is a set environment, it's still massive in scale, but every single area feels like not empty. There's so much to see and explore. Like, it's just, it does that better just because it's, I feel like, a set location, but it's still open world.
Yeah, it's kind of like quality versus quantity. I mean, if you have like a randomly generated world, like a lot of survival games do, they can't make it as like handcrafted, because
no,
they have to make things work in a generic kind of way. And when they hand design the world, it just feels a lot more real. And
it does.
And it feels like It's not just a bunch of open space that some computer put there from like an instruction set. It feels just like a real place, and that's something this game really does well. I will say one thing that probably hurts the replay value a little bit, because you always know what to expect, and the more you play it, the more you're gonna know the world and the less surprised you're gonna be. But that's kind of, it's a small price to pay, because you can always play the game a little bit differently,
Each
like
time.
in how you design your base and which biomes you visit first and stuff. So it still feels a little bit different.
I I agree on that point. It hurts the replay factor that the layout is the same and the creatures are the same and whatnot. But at the same time, I will say, given that it's like the same experience over and over, I could play this game like many times to come, and I would still enjoy it just as much. Be as scared as I was the first time when I played it? Probably not. But I feel like that just kind of happens with every horror game. There is the first initial impact of being scared. You don't know what there is. Like, it's literally just being scared because you don't know what there is, and then once you finally do learn what there is, the horror game kind of wears off its scare. And I feel like that, like, it happens in Subnautica, and like, yeah, that may hurt the replay value, but it's not even meant to be a horror game, and that scare was there. It's like, I feel like that's so cool that, like, yeah, you may miss out on the scare the like next playthroughs, but there's still so many like vibrant environments to see and explore still, like to like experience again, that it's still worth playing. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. And the other thing is, a lot of those randomly generated worlds, they will make the game rely very heavily on combat, because that's something that they can control, and it kind of works no matter what the world looks like. And so it all becomes about like fighting enemies, whether it's players or just computer generated enemies. They really fill it with combat, and it's all about like fighting. And this game doesn't need that, because there's enough to do besides that. I mean, there really isn't. There's not combat in this game. There's some little crab things that you can like swing your knife at, but it's barely combat, and it just doesn't matter.
The closest thing to combat you can probably, or the closest thing to like good combat in this game you can come to, is probably making the propulsion cannon, picking up one of those like land crab things and sending him into the upper atmosphere.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like,
that's true. So there's still, plenty of activities to keep busy with.
But yeah, this isn't like, you're not going to find combat in Subnautica, but like you said, there's still so much to do that it doesn't matter. Like, that is one of the things that amaze me about this game, is like, I am like so used to playing open world survival games that like require some sort of like action or like combat or something to make it entertaining. And then you finish this game and it's like, I was entertained the entire time I was playing this, and there was not a single like point of actually needing to do combat. It's like,
because that's just how interesting the environment is.
Yeah, it's insane. But I love this game so much.
Yeah, me too. And just in a general sense, I feel like the attention to detail in this game is really, really good. Like, or maybe not attention to detail, I would say that, but just, you can tell the developers like really enjoyed making this game, and I feel like that's always what makes a good game. A lot of games these days, I probably mentioned this in previous episodes, but you can just tell when it's like they're trying to make a cash cow and they don't care about how good the content is. It's just like, we got to get this out so people can pay for it. But this felt like they actually made something they would want to play, and it shows, which is always a good start to making a fun game.
Yeah, it really is. And I wanted to say really quick, I don't think in terms of like open world games there's often boundaries. Oh, actually, okay. Is Fallout considered an open world survival game? I'm thinking of 4 specifically.
I wouldn't call it survival exactly. Okay. It's more of an RPG.
I gotcha. Well, okay. I don't know. There's like in open world games, sometimes there are just kind of like lame borders that, I feel like they like cut you off because the world doesn't continue or whatever, and they don't express that in a cool way. I want to say Subnautica has like one of the best edge of the map borders ever, because it doesn't explicitly tell you, and it's like one of the most scary and jarring things when you first do it. Like, I don't know, I don't think I did this when I first played the game, but going out to like the edge of the map, you stumble upon this biome called the Void, because you were on like the like shallowest part, or one of the shallowest, I can't speak, one of the shallowest pieces of like water there is on the planet, which is insane. But once you get to the border of that piece of land, there's a biome called the Void, which surrounds the entire crater you're on. And when you enter that, it says something like entering dead zone or something, adding file to databank or whatever. And it just like, you're staring out into blackness, and it's like, where am I? And if you continue out far enough, ghost leviathans just start spawning one by one, and you can see them like fade in from the distance from the pitch black.
And they're much bigger than regular ones too.
They're much bigger, and that is one of the reasons why I hate the ghost leviathans, is because, I mean, I love them, they're like such a scary creature, but I hate them in the game because like, you are just out in the middle of this open water, like pitch black, no color to it, and all of a sudden there's something that is like light and bright coming at you from the distance, slowly fading in, and it's like, that thing is huge, that's coming at me, I don't like that, I want to get out of here. It is just, it's such a cool way to do a map border compared to other games, and I love it so much because like, it's just, it uses the game's elements to scare you into staying in the like main map, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, there's a few different ways that games like to do the edge thing. One is just a big wall that you can't get past, whether it be invisible, which is like the worst type you can have because it just feels like it just takes you out of the game completely, because that's not how things work in real life. Or it's a giant mountain that you can't climb or something. Then there's the kind where it lets you start walking out and then it says go back or you're just gonna die, which once again is almost as bad as the invisible wall, because it's like, well, it's just an artificial end to the game. It's not it's not natural.
Believable. It's like, wow, you're in such a cool world, and then all of a sudden the developers are like, okay, we gotta break your immersion really quick, you can't actually go here.
Yeah, it's like, they just break the fourth wall. It's like someone looking at the camera in a TV show and just talking to you. It feels like unnatural, but...
Yeah, it's like, whoa.
But then well, okay, and then there's just making it infinite, like Minecraft, which is kind of cool. It's like, you can just explore forever, but then it's kind of got to be a different type of game, because all the content is... around the center in this game, so you can't just keep leaving. You can't get further and further, or there will be nothing there, because that's not how they designed it. So the way they did it is really cool.
Yeah, it's almost like the size of the world, of the open world that you're doing, also does it definitely does. The size of the game also influences how detailed the story is going to be, because like in Minecraft is a game where it's infinite. You can make the world infinite or whatever. And there are certainly, like, lore elements, I bet, or something, but, like, there is no detailed story to Minecraft. If you go in that game, you're not going to find a rich story. It is just, like, you can beat the Ender Dragon, boom, you're done. That's Minecraft or whatever, right?
Yeah, and that's okay, because that game isn't really meant to have a story.
It's not meant to have a story. I'm not dissing Minecraft. It works that way, but because Minecraft is so big and focused on the gameplay and, like, the expanse of the world, it can't really have that story that Subnautica has, because, you know, like, Subnautica is... confined to that one area, but because of that, it works so well, whereas Minecraft thrives on that openness, but it can't have that detailed story.
Yeah. And even games like Breath of the Wild, which I love, and I'm sure we'll do
very good game.
An episode on that, and maybe Tears of the Kingdom. You're gonna have to play Tears of the Kingdom.
I'm gonna have to play Tears of the Kingdom, yeah.
But those games, they're great Zelda games, but even they, I would say, suffer a little bit from the open world thing. As those games grew bigger, the story suffered a little bit. Not that Zelda ever had like the deepest story, but it feels a little bit disconnected, or fragmented when it just gives you little bits all over the place of a story that should be kind of sequential. Like, when it matters, when scenes come one after another, it's hard to make a story like they did in Subnautica. And so, anyway, some games have difficulty with it, and Subnautica did a very good job with it.
They did, and I was gonna say a counterpoint. The Zelda may not have the most complex main story, but it can definitely be in depth. And I provide you the example Majora's Mask, and maybe even Ocarina of Time, which we can talk about in later podcasts or something. But
that's
both
true.
Those games are detailed, and they're in the Zelda series. And I mean, why? I don't know why I'm getting so passionate about this, but like, I love Majora's Mask, and it's such a detailed game. And Breath of the Wild is probably nowhere near as detailed as like Majora's Mask, but
in story,
it's got in story. But... It's got a lot more content than Majora's Mask, but I still feel like Majora's Mask has more story and stuff because it's not such an open world. I feel like that could be one of the reasons. That's not like the only reason, but yeah, I feel like Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time could be more in depth because of that. But that's not to say Breath of the Wild is still a good open world game.
It still has like plenty of. This is not a Breath of the Wild episode, but it still has a lot of similar things to Subnautica, where you kind of get pieces of maybe not the main story, but like little stories within the world that you just figure out from the environment. So that is like a good point to those games.
It's like context to the story. There's context to the story, I think, is what it would be. But yeah, anyways, I think we should give our overall review of this game, which is probably hard to tell from what we've been saying for the past hour. But yeah.
It's very strong. Very good. Highly recommend this game.
Perhaps one of, if not the best open world survival game, in my opinion. I don't know about you, but it's up there.
It is
up there.
If you've never played before, you definitely should, and I would recommend not looking up a bunch of stuff about it. I don't think we spoiled like too much about it. So even if you listen to this, you're going to find a lot of stuff in there that's really cool, and your first playthrough is a lot of fun. So if you want to pick it up on Steam, or you can even get it on Switch, I think. So if you want to play mobile, but I'd recommend PC or something. But yeah, we love this game.
Absolutely.
And besides that, we just want to thank you guys so much for listening. If you do like the show, feel free to follow on whatever platform you like to listen on. If you could leave a review, if your platform allows reviews, that would be very helpful for us to help us get these episodes to new listeners. And if you would like to leave us a comment or a question and maybe have us get into it on the show, you can either send those to gamesandgrubpod@gmail.com, or you can find us at gamesandgrubpod on X and Instagram. And if you need to see those links, they're in the description. Aside from that, anything you need to add?
I wanted to say thank you guys for listening, and it's always fun to do these. So yeah, thank you guys for listening, and honestly, I'm curious to hear some of your guys' thoughts, because we got some strong opinions sometimes. So if you have any opinions that you want to share, please do.
Yeah, we would love to hear them. Aside from that, keep gaming, keep grubbing, and have yourself a good night.
Bye, guys.